Boundaries are not what you say no to. Understanding what boundaries are huge, and unfortunately there's so much misinformation out there. You've always had boundaries. You've heard all the time that you need to learn how to set boundaries, but this doesn't give true representation of what that actually means. To set a boundary isn't to create one. You've always had boundaries. A boundary is a personal truth. So if you've always had boundaries, what does that even mean, and how can I figure out what my boundaries are? It's very unique to you. So the way that I would figure out what a boundary is for me is how I feel about something that's occurring, something that's happening, or something that could happen. Let me give you an example. In my routine daily, I go to the drive-thru and get a coffee. I order a small coffee because it has the right amount of milk, the right amount of coffee, and when I put 1 sugar in it, it just tastes exactly how I want it to taste, what my preference is for that drink. That preference is my personal truth. One day I went and instead of getting a small, even though I ordered a small, I got a medium. Now, when I got that medium, I was told, oh, the amount of a small is in there. But when I actually got it and opened it, I realized, no, it wasn't the amount of a small. It was the amount of a medium. And a lot of people look at this and go, yeah, but I got more, and it is what it is. But what happened in that moment is that what I desired, what I asked for, what was my personal truth, wasn't what I got. And when I drove off, I understood that because it made me feel a certain way. So the way I felt was I was annoyed, I was disappointed, I was upset. Now, a lot of people in this situation will be like, oh, just get over it, it's just coffee, like whatever. But this is what boundaries are. This isn't me trying to get people to be annoyed at the smallest thing. Some people might not be annoyed about that because it wouldn't be crossing that boundary of theirs, and that's completely okay and very normal. But one person's personal truth, i.e. boundary, is very different to another person's personal truth or boundary. But in that moment, I recognized that that was crossing a boundary of mine because of the way that it felt. Now, that doesn't mean that I burst into the shop and I was like, hey, this is not acceptable and I change this right now. For you to stick to your boundaries doesn't necessarily mean that you have to push away or push back. What I did was I went into the shop again and I said, I ordered a small, can I have a small please? Because that was my boundary. And personally, me on my healing journey, I've always said to myself that I will never ever treat myself in a way that I will abandon myself again because of my experiences, what I've had. And personally, me, I'm quite very strict with my boundaries now. But it's not like I required to push away and I'd required to go in there and forcefully make sure that they understood their mistake. It's not what a boundary is. A boundary is your personal truth. If someone that I'm in a relationship with is going against my personal truth, and the way that I know that is because of the way it makes me feel. If in a relationship, I express what I want to do because it's truly what I want to do and I enjoy it, and that's met with resistance from the other person, there are a number of things I can do. But in terms of boundaries, we need to understand what is going on in this moment. If I express what I want to do and let's say my partner says, no, I don't want to do that, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going against my boundary. But in that moment, I can then say, hey, let's have a conversation about this. I can either decide to go and do that thing on my own, or there can be some sort of compromise in that moment where, all right, we'll do what I want and then we'll both do what you want, so then we can both still be together. But if I express that I want to communicate about this and that's met with a dismissal, no, this is my decision, this is my final decision, and then that makes me feel a certain way, I'm learning that that is crossing a boundary. My personal truth is that I want to work on this decision, work on this relationship, work on communicating with each other. But if that's being met with absolute dismissal and not wanting to work on communicating with each other, then that makes me feel a certain way, which is showing me that that's going against my boundary. It's going against my personal truth. My personal truth isn't necessarily wanting to do that thing, it's the communication that can come after it. I can't expect everyone to do what I want to do all the time. Yes, I could be extremely compatible with someone else versus another person. And it's understandable that some person that I'm extremely compatible with may not want to do absolutely everything that I want to do. But I expect to be able to have a conversation about it, to be able to come to some sort of resolution to this situation. But if I'm continuously dismissing missed. I'm not okay with that. We all have always had boundaries. It's just we've learned to abandon ourselves because every time that I expressed my boundary, it turned out to be unsafe for me as a child. Every time I said no, I was forced to do it. Every time I expressed my dislike or displease about a situation, I was told to just get on with it. And if I ever showed up in a way that I was really, really displeased, crying, being angry, I was then scolded for it. So I learned that every time I showed my personal truth, showed what my boundary is, it would be unsafe for me. So I've learned to maintain a connection with others by abandoning my own personal truth. But they've always been there, and they're still there now. A boundary isn't something that I need to create out of thin air. A boundary is already there. I just need to learn what it is, because my entire life I've learned to avoid it, to reject it and abandon these parts of myself.